Welcome to EPG Pathshala program. This is Meenal Kataranikar, Associate Professor from the Department of Philosophy, University of Mumbai. In this session, we are going to discuss Nagarjuna's critique of Pramana, doubt and Tarka. This session is written by Professor Dilip Mohanta from Calcutta University. Nagarjuna in the history of Indian philosophy is known to be a skeptic. He is well known for the objections he raised against the traditional concept of knowledge and mainly the realistic metaphysics of the Naiyayikas. He hails from the Buddhist tradition, so the basic tenets of Buddhist philosophy are rooted in his philosophy. However, as he asserts, he does not hold any position of his own. In other module, we have discussed the method of argument, that is prasanga, adopted by Nagarjuna in conducting the discussions with other schools. With the same method, he arrives at such conclusions which are detrimental for the traditional concept of knowledge as well as traditional concept of reality. In this session, we are mainly concentrating on the epistemological debate conducted by Nagarjuna. So, main areas where he has raised the objections are the concept of Pramana, the concept of doubt or Samshaya, and the concept of Tarka or hypothetical reasoning. These are the three main concepts advocated by the Nyaya school of philosophy, and all of them are known as supportive concepts in the field of knowledge. Pramana is the instrument of knowledge, Samshaya is the initiator of knowledge, and Tarka leads to proper reasoning through hypothetical reasoning. So, for Nyaya, these three are very important concepts, and Nagarjuna raises objections against them to show that these three concepts are not actually well grounded concepts. So, let us go to the critique of Nagarjuna one by one. Let us start with the concept of Pramana. According to Nyaya, Pramana is the instrument of knowledge, and every object in the world is known by the Pramanas. What Pramanas know is given independently in the world. Once we remember these three basic statements of Nyaya, it is easy for us to understand the criticism raised by Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna raises the first criticism against the very concept of Pramana. If every object in the world is known by Pramana, then what is the Pramana for Pramana itself? Because Pramana is also the object of knowledge. Even though it is the instrument of knowledge, it is the object that exists independently. So, what is the Pramana that gives us the knowledge of Pramana? There can be three alternatives. Pramana does not require Pramana, or Pramanas are known by some other Pramanas, or Pramanas are known one by one. Let us go to these three positions again one by one. If the Naiyayikas say that the Pramanas do not require the Pramanas, they are self-luminous, then they are contradicting their own position. All the other objects are known by the Pramanas, but Pramanas themselves are not known by the Pramanas. This is obviously a self-contradiction. So, it is quite possible that Nyaya thinkers may go to the second option, Pramanas are known by other pramanas. Now the pramanas accepted by the Nyaya school, as we know, they are 4 in number: Pratyaksha, Anumana, Shabda and Upamana. These 4 pramanas are known by some other set of pramanas. Fine. So if these pramanas are known by other set of pramanas, which are the pramanas for those other set of pramanas? Can we see the infinite regress here? If pramanas are known to be known by the other pramanas, that leads to the infinite regress, because the requirement of pramanas will never be over and we will never arrive at the pramanas, the pramanas which give us knowledge of everything. And therefore, the argument that pramanas will be known by other pramanas leads to infinite regress. Now, instead of coining other set of pramanas, the Nayayikas may argue that the pramanas are known by each other. So, Pratyaksha can be known by Shabda, Anumana can known by Upamana, or Shabda can be known by Upamana, and so on. But then that is very chaotic, and such chaos will not even be acceptable to the Nyaya thinkers. And therefore, what gives us knowledge of the pramanas is not answered very logically by the Nyaya thinkers. But they may come up to the original position saying that no, pramanas do not require the pramanas. They are self-luminous like fire. As fire illuminates the object as well as it illuminates itself, the pramanas also illuminate the object and illuminate themselves. Nagarjuna has a very strong argument here. He does not accept the analogy of fire. It is acceptable that fire illuminates the object, but it is not acceptable that fire illuminates itself. Fire illuminates the object which is hidden in the darkness. So, with the existence of fire, the darkness is repelled and the object illuminates. But this cannot be said about the fire. If we say that fire illuminates itself, we will have to say that fire was hidden in the darkness, and that is very absurd. So, there is no need and there is no logic in saying that fire illuminates itself. So, Nagarjuna does not appreciate the Nyaya argument which says that Pramana illuminates itself. And then he raises the counter question: if Pramanas are known independently, or if Pramanas are known on their own without the Prameyas, what are they Pramanas for? Is it not necessary to say that Pramanas are known by the Prameyas or Pramanas are established by the Prameyas? Yes, that is one of the possible ways of giving us the Pramana-Prameya relationship. But here we are again into a trap. Pramanas are established by the Prameyas. How are Prameyas established? Aren't they established by the Pramanas? So, Pramanas are established by the Prameyas and the Prameyas are established by the Pramanas. Here there is obvious circularity. As Nagarjuna puts it, there is the fallacy of Anyonyashraya. Pramanas will be established by the Prameyas and Prameyas in turn will be known by the Pramanas. Which is prior and which is later? Are Prameyas prior? If Prameyas are existing and known before the Pramanas. Why do we require Pramanas at all? Because they are already there and they are already known. And what is already known, we are making known again by coining the additional concept of Pramanas. If Pramanas are prior and if they are establishing the Prameyas, then they are establishing nothing, because they are without direction of what to establish. So, without Prameyas, there is no meaning of Pramanas, and without Pramanas, there is no meaning of Prameyas. If it is said that Pramanas are known by the Prameyas or Pramanas are established by the Prameyas, these Prameyas become the Pramanas for the Pramanas. And if Pramanas are getting established by the Prameyas, the Pramanas themselves transform into the Prameyas. Can we see this change of position? If it is said that Pramanas are getting established by the Prameyas, we are converting the Pramanas into Prameyas and Prameyas into Pramanas. Do we have any categorical definitions of Pramanas and Prameyas so that we can explain the relation between them? We do not really have the logical definitions and very clear understanding of the concept of Pramana, of the concept of Prameya, and of the interrelation between the two. In the situation that we don't have logically established Pramanas, we don't have logically established Prameyas, and we don't have clear understanding of the relation between the Pramanas and Prameyas, the whole enterprise of knowledge is groundless. We do not have knowledge of anything because we do not have Pramanas which will give us knowledge. So the whole business of epistemology, the whole phenomenon of knowledge is groundless. Nagarjuna's point of this criticism is not to say that knowledge is impossible. At the face value, it appears that Nagarjuna is refuting the whole phenomenon of knowledge. His purpose, however, is not to refute the whole phenomenon of knowledge, but his purpose is to show that the concepts that we are using for establishing our phenomenon of knowledge must be well grounded. And if they are not well grounded, and if we do not have clarity about these epistemological concepts, the whole science of epistemology is a chaotic affair, and therefore we do not have any need and any right to hold such science. This is Nagarjuna's critique of the Nyaya concept of Pramanas. Now we are going ahead to see how Nagarjuna refutes or rather criticizes the Nyaya concept of Samshaya and Nyaya concept of Tarka. Let us now see how Gautama explains the nature of doubt in his Nyaya Sutra. Doubt is a kind of cognition of the same object apparently characterized by conflicting notions. In Gautama's Nyaya Sutra, doubt is called a kind of wavering cognition, that is vimarsha. It is the contradictory apprehension about the same knowable which relies on the recollection of the specific distinguishing marks of each. The 5 varieties of doubt are enumerated, which are due to 5 different causal conditions. According to Nyaya Sutra, doubt is one of the indispensable categories of knowing because it is necessary precondition of any philosophical investigation. The ipso facto doubt is to be dispelled by a thorough investigation through Pramana. Unless there is initial doubt, the necessity of admitting the existence of Pramana and Prameya cannot be explained. Nagarjuna therefore refutes the existence of doubt as a Prameya as classified in Gautama's Nyaya Sutra. As Nagarjuna has shown his unpreparedness to accept the realistic concept of Pramana, he also raises a very logical objections against the concept of doubt. As the student of epistemology, we all know that without initial doubt, there is no questioning, and in the absence of questioning, there are no proper logical definitions and conceptions of any element in philosophy. So, no doubt, doubt is useful, but in what way it is to be articulated is a matter of question, and that is what Nagarjuna is bringing to light. So, let us see how Nagarjuna refutes the notion of doubt established by Gautama. Nagarjuna's refutation of doubt comes in the flow of his critique of the Pramanas. He examines three possibilities. The object of doubt may be something perceived or non-perceived or something seemingly perceived. In none of the cases, it is logically right to admit the existence of doubt as an independent category of knowable. The object of doubt is characterized by two mutually contrary attributes. Here, our mind vacillates between the two, and unless these peculiar characteristics are attributed to the same object of knowledge, the doubt would not be established as existing. What is perceived is apprehended, cognized with certitude as existing. What is not perceived is also apprehended, cognized with certitude as non-existing. So, in these two cases, there is no possibility of doubt. Now remains the third possibility, that is to say, the cases of seemingly perceived objects. When a piece of rope appears as snake, the object is cognized not with real defining characteristic, but with the characteristic of something other than itself. So, the cognition is surely a case of false cognition. There is no scope for uncertainty in that cognition. And since there is no scope of uncertainty, there is no possibility of doubt. The spirit of Nagarjuna's refutation here seems to be as follows. Ascertainment of something by perception is a piece of confirmed cognition about that thing's existence. In fact, when we perceive something, we do have a mental picture of the object of the said perception. When we perceive something as a tree trunk, we are sure about its existence. In the case of true perceptual cognition, there is always an element of certitude. The same is true about other alternatives. Even the case of false perception of a snake in a rope is not a case of doubt during the time of perception or after perception, because in that case there is the absence of representation of a mental picture of a rope, but there is no sufficient condition for producing doubt as we usually find in the example of the mere non-perception. Nagarjuna argues that the confusing features of the yonder object, which is the distinguishing mark of doubt, may either be known or unknown. There is also no scope for uncertainty. The cognition of distinguishing unique feature of existence and non-existence is not possible in the same time. This leads Nagarjuna to conclude that the existence of doubt cannot logically be established. Let us go to discuss Nagarjuna's refutation of Tarka. Tarka, as expounded in Nyaya Sutra, is the hypothetical argument, or in the modern language, it is the argument based on reductio ad absurdum. So let us see first the Nyaya concept of Tarka, and then let us see Nagarjuna's refutation of this concept of Tarka. What is the nature of Tarka according to Nyaya? Hypothetical argument or Tarka has the function to dispel doubt. Gautama considers it as a type of uha, an indirect way of deliberation regarding the genuine grounds for specifying the nature or the unique feature of a yet unknown object in question. It is by itself not a pramana, but acts as an accessory to a pramana. An ipso facto doubt initiates the application of hypothetical reasoning between two mutually exclusive possible unique characteristics. The inquirer hypothetically accepts one and then becomes sure about the specific feature of the object doubted. It exposes the untenability of one position and gives support to the counter position. However, Tarka does not claim that it demonstrates the nature of object in question with certitude, though it asserts the unique features of the object in question and points to it as real ground for assertion. So it is indirect reasoning. Nagarjuna exhibits the refutation of the Nyaya category of the hypothetical argument, that is Tarka. It is sometimes described as indirect reasoning, not based on observational evidence. The Nyaya philosophers might be banking on the common sense experience and might be arguing that the existence of Tarka, the hypothetical argument or reasoning, must be admitted because on the basis of indirect strength of such a category, the other knowable existence is established. Nagarjuna dismisses such a possibility. Philosophical inquiry can be made either with regard to the known object or with regard to the object yet to be known. For both these alternatives, we do not require any indirect proof like hypothetical reasoning. If the object of knowable is already known, then the necessity of the existence of Tarka for making it known again is useless. If the object of knowledge is declared as unknown and as remaining outside the scope of one's knowledge, there also we do not require any indirect proof, because any kind of proof, direct or indirect whatsoever, we can give only with regard to those objects which come under the scope of our knowledge. There is an inner resemblance between doubt and indirect reasoning. In both cases, our mind vacillates between ideas and we make conscious effort in order to decide which of two ideas can represent the unique features of the object in question. Because of this similarity, the refutation of Tarka according to Nagarjuna is similar to the refutation of Samshaya. So far we discussed Nagarjuna's objections against Pramana, doubt and Tarka. As he himself asserts, the refutation of doubt and refutation of Tarka is on the same lines. But he has taken great efforts to show the inadequacy and incompleteness in the realistic concept of Pramana. As we have mentioned earlier, Nagarjuna does not hold any position of his own. That is correct. But when he is criticizing the other position, he is not at all ready to accept the extreme positions as well. So, one of the extreme positions, according to him, is essentialism or Swabhavavad. Every notion or every object does have its own nature. This is a realistic position, and this is challenged by Nagarjuna radically. If Pramana has its own nature, it must have proper logical grounds. If Prameya has its own nature, it also must have proper grounds. But just now we have seen that it is not possible to define Pramana and Prameya independently of each other. So this interdependence between them is one of the obstacles in articulating the swabhavas of these concepts. Nagarjuna points at this inadequacy, and therefore the challenges that he has raised and the objections he has posed against the traditional realistic concept of pramanas they are detrimental to the very definitions and concepts of the same. We don't see the counter arguments to Nagarjuna in the later history of philosophy. However, there are 2 points to be noted. On the background of Nagarjuna, the whole science of Buddhist epistemology was built by the thinkers like Dinnaga and Dharmakirti. So, they tried to reconcile between the realistic notion of pramanas and the Nagarjuna's radical criticism against the realistic notion. Second point, which is related to the concept of Tarka, is that Nyaya accepts Tarka as the Prameya and it is not accepted as the Pramana, rather it is accepted as the auxiliary condition for the Pramana. While in Jaina tradition there is whole theory of Tarka, and in the Jaina theory Tarka is not accepted as indirect reasoning, but Tarka is accepted as inductive reasoning, and it is regarded to be the logical prerequisite for the Pramana of Anumana. So, Tarka in Jaina tradition and Tarka in Nyaya tradition, they can be contraposed for the studies in Indian epistemology. Indian epistemology has given us lot of dimensions to study, to research and to compare different schools and different concepts. So, as students of philosophy, it is enjoyable that we go to the original sessions as well as we go to the references and original sources that are mentioned at the end of sessions. Thank you.